In the Housing Production Plans Fall 2020 online open house, the most highly endorsed priority was racial and ethnic integration in housing, supported by 65% of participants. However, Home Mortgage Disclosure Act data show that over the past 15 years, only 1% of all home purchase mortgages issued for Melrose were for Black home buyers. Moreover, Black home buyers were 68% more likely than white home buyers to have their mortgage application denied. The question is, what can be done to increase the number of Black homeowners in Melrose? We're going to start with Ms. Grigoritis.
Thank you. I think it's well known that Melrose and the entire greater Boston region is facing a housing crisis, both a lack of inventory and affordability. And this is a hugely pressing issue. And this applies to the lack of homeownership opportunities for people of color in this community and throughout greater Boston. This has been a priority of mine to address while I've been in elected office in Melrose. In 2020, I co-sponsored the order to create Melrose's Affordable Housing, which is a dedicated fund for the receipt of payments from developers and other sources so that we can use this money to create a variety of affordable housing options, including low interest loan programs for first-time homebuyers, housing assistance for renters, and even the possibility of creating city-owned units for sale or for rent based on certain income requirements. I supported the passage of the Housing Production Plan, which outlines best practices for housing production and brings Melrose in line with the state requirements under Chapter 40B. The recent MBTA Communities Act legislation that was adopted by the state will continue to push us and the entire region to develop housing along the rail corridor, and I have supported zoning amendments that put us in line with legislation. I also want to acknowledge that moving the needle on Black homeownership takes both institutional change and outside advocacy. And I'm grateful that members of our faith community have been engaged with the Greater Boston Interfaith Organization's Housing Justice campaign. I will continue to be committed to supporting housing as a racial justice issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Hammer.
Great, thank you. As I answered this question, I just want to be mindful that with my answer, I'm not conflating, or we're not conflating race and class. But in speaking of home ownership and our Black neighbors, obviously we need a more diverse housing stock generally. But I would like to propose a new affordable housing strategy where we work with developers. First, we present a vision to them of what we want our city to look like and their city to be. And then we ask them to bring to us proposals that make sense and that look and meld with the neighborhood that they're in. And instead of asking them to build affordable units, 15% of their stock, their units be affordable, because as we have learned, these are not actually affordable units based on a national formula. I want them to instead invest in our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which we have, to then work with our Affordable Housing Corporation, which we also have, to build units for people for home ownership opportunities. And those units can be in places that are on transportation-oriented development areas, the MBTA districts, and also we have a lot of opportunity above our first floor retail throughout our business districts. So we can definitely do more affordable housing in ways that we want, in ways that people want it back, and in ways that they can afford it. And one other story I wanted to share was Melrose really being a more welcoming community. So recently we had a very public open event where people at the beer garden finally felt that they belonged. This was the community that they belong in. We need to be a more welcoming, open community for all people to come in. So thank you. I'll talk more about housing as the questions go on.
Thank you. Ms. Madera Solano.
Thank you. Well, unfortunately, housing affordability has been affecting all of us here in Melrose and in the greater Boston area in recent years. But we have to acknowledge that housing discrimination and redlining happened and may still even be going on in our own community. And when we think about how we might remedy this inequity, we might consider a few things. So first, we can understand that access to inherited wealth and financial resources may be less for people of color. And we can look towards creating a down payment assistance program or microloan programs to help first-time home buyers who have less resources to put together enough money to make a solid down payment. We can also work with the Melrose Housing Authority to create more affordable housing units in Melrose. And one option to explore is creating incentives for current Melrose homeowners to agree to adding an affordable deed restriction in lieu of paying property taxes so that we could increase our affordable units and also provide property tax relief to homeowners in Melrose, particularly senior citizens that need it. And by doing this, we could create more affordable housing without building more condos or large developments. And having more affordable housing units in Melrose means more access to home ownership to all home buyers, especially those of color. Across the board, whether it be new rentals or in home purchasing or lending, we really need to send a clear message that discrimination and redlining in housing in Melrose is not going to be tolerated. And I'm committed to doing that as the next mayor. Thank you.